Among the people of Sri Lanka, a staple is the rice and curry meal. There are different variations created from what starts off as a humble bowl of grains: milk rice, lamprey, fried rice, biryani, and yellow rice, to name but a few. In the metropolitan areas, the rice pack or plate is consumed by office workers, blue-collar workers, and factory workers. Rice is normally consumed with a minimum of 4 to 5 curries accompanying it. It's hard to imagine a Sri Lankan diet without the inclusion of rice. Historical records indicate that the cultivation of rice went far back as 161 BCE. The great kingdoms of Anuradhapura and Polonnaruwa saw this crop being cultivated and harvested with great care, and the rice produced at the time made the country self-sufficient in our needs. The monarchs of ancient times realized that for optimum conditions, the storage and regulated use of water was a priority. The great hydraulic civilization of the country reached its zenith during this period, with tens of thousands of reservoirs dotting the length and breadth of the country. These reservoirs were built to serve as an added resource and to offset the unpredictability of the monsoon rain patterns. Tea, rubber, and coconut are regarded as the big three among major crops. However, this is as an export commodity. In fact, rice is the single most important crop, occupying 34% of the cultivated land area in Sri Lanka. The cultivation of rice is based around a paddy field. The paddy field is a flooded field of arable land used for the growing of rice. Fields are normally created adjacent to rivers or marshes and can also be built into hillsides as terraced fields. In Sri Lanka, there are 2 seasons for cultivation and harvesting. These 2 seasons coincide with the onset of the 2 monsoons. The Yala season is from May to August and mirrors the pattern of the southwest monsoon. The Maha season, which is from September to March, follows the course of the northeast monsoon. The sum of land cultivated during both seasons is estimated as being about 870,000 hectares. In Sinhalese, the word kumbura is used in reference to a section of field belonging to a farmer. The complete area is referred to as kumburuyaya. There are 2 types of fields, in the vernacular referred to as goda kumbura and mada kumbura. The goda kumbura relies on rainwater or externally sourced irrigation to feed the fields with water. The mada kumbura is the most popular method employed, where the water supply is constantly available either through a stream or by way of an irrigation tank. These irrigation tanks, created mostly during ancient times, meant the farmer had a reliable resource for water. The land preparation is the most important part of the cultivation process. The field is divided in regular blocks of land using the terrain's contours or into sections of field called liadi. The divisions are connected by an elevated mound or ridge called nera. These fields are interconnected through openings in the ridges to let the water pass through from field to field. In some villages, before the preparation of the fields, religious rituals and ceremonies are observed, harking back to practices in the times of ancient kings. The process of ploughing the field was, in times past, done with oxen and a plough. The farmer would prepare the land prior to sowing. Of course, technology has replaced this activity with tractors and an attached tiller being used to make the operation a lot easier. The smaller fields are harrowed with a tractor or a smaller hand tractor. A mechanized tiller is attached to the sides or at the rear. In times past, the fields were enriched with decaying hay, manure, leaf litter, and other organic sources of fertilizer. Today, fields are sprayed with chemical fertilizer to achieve greater yields. This means the yield could have harmful toxins present. By using a strictly organic method with natural fertilizer, the paddy field has the potential to yield 3 tons per hectare of cultivated land. The fields are also leveled a few weeks later, the objective being to ensure an even flow of water between the fields. Crop establishment refers to the process of seeding, seed germinations, emergence of seedlings, and development until maturity. The terroir of the area, the soil, and climatic conditions, along with crop management, all play an important part. The selection of quality seeds are an imperative decision in obtaining a bountiful harvest. The farmer looks for a type of rice of his choosing. The seeds must be full and identical in size, free of weeds, insects, and other extraneous matter which impedes the crop's growth. The fields are planted in one of 2 methods: transplanting or direct seeding. In transplanting, the selected seeds are planted on seed beds and then allowed to germinate. After germination occurs, the seedlings are manually planted in wet fields. The direct seeding method is where the selected seeds are spread over the field. As the paddy crop grows and starts flourishing, it attracts a host of unwelcome visitors: rodents, insects, disease, and weeds. There are multiple ways of tackling these invasive intruders, including natural anti-ecosystems and artificial pesticides. Wooden fences made from branches and tree stems are erected to keep out wild animals from raiding the crop. In some fields, scarecrows are placed to scare away the birds. It is important to note that ancient farmers worked harmoniously with the surrounding ecosystem and caused little or no damage to the environment and to wildlife. One of the altruistic practices was the demarcation of an area on either end of the fields for the sole purpose of acting as feeding grounds for birds. In some chainas and fields where wild animals are prevalent, farmers would construct crude watch huts atop trees called a pala. In the nights, they would then light a fire and sit up in the watch huts and scare animals with loud chanting and singing. Once the paddy has matured in the fields, it's ready for harvesting. The optimum color sought is a golden yellow-hued stalk of paddy. The maturing of the crop normally results around 120 days after crop establishment. Manual harvesting used to be the only method available to the farmer in times past. This is a labor-intensive chore which could take up as much as 40 to 80 man-hours per hectare. Today, this task is fast being replaced by machinery which can harvest the fields with extreme efficiency. Even the threshing, which previously was a manual operation, is now taken over by machines. Post-harvesting measures are taken to ensure the longevity of the grain. Drying of the paddy to remove excess moisture is done to minimize spoilage. The final steps are milling and processing before the rice is packed into required packages of different sizes. In milling, the hull from the rice is removed. The bran is then left or removed to create white rice. In ancient times, paddy was stored in a structure called a vibissa. Since 1951, with the assistance of the FAO, the land area, the cultivated extent and harvest is tracked through agricultural research assistance and the government agent. The average yield of paddy is then calculated at the district levels. Sri Lanka currently produces almost 3 million tons of rough rice annually, satiating 95% of the needs of the country. Rice is estimated to provide 45% of the required calorie intake and 40% of the required protein intake for the average Lankan citizen. As per capita needs and consumption changes, it is projected that rice production will need to grow annually by around 2.5%. This will have to be met by increased cropping, using uncultivated arable land, and ensuring higher yields.